Welcome back to another Minecraft update video. This is Snapshot 21w08a. The changes continue to roll in. We have new ores that you can see behind me, new changes to terrain generation, a new basalt material, and some insight from the developers. We're going to be checking it all out in this video. First of all, we're going to check out the cave generation underground, as in general it feels like there is so much more variety and so much more going on. There are a couple of key features to point out though. The old types of cave generation, known as canyon and cave carvers, will now take place below Y0. In the previous snapshot, none of the old cave generation would happen down at the bottom of the world. So by turning off the night vision, the other change should become really apparent to you. Lava is back. There was less of this being generated in previous snapshots. Now we have the infamous lava pockets down at the bottom of the world, and also in general it feels like there is more lava that leaks out into caves. Now on the blog post it says that cracks can now be found carved into the ground, and I only had to fly around a little while to find a big example of this. In fact, you can find smaller ones quite routinely. You can see that the caves down here, which happen to be waterlogged, are intersecting with the surface. And I think on first iteration this might be a little too common, but it is a new feature of terrain generation. And I think it may also be related to this tweet where they've introduced crack carvers and shown an example as well. However, this is deep underground, but of course these are all elements that make the caves feel more and more unique. And you, my friend, are going to see a lot of texture changes in this snapshot. However, something that might look like a texture change but it's actually not. This block right here is tough, and it's actually replacing andesite. We used to have pockets of andesite generating down here below Y0, and tough is the material that once surrounded the amethyst geode. However, there is a new material here in place of it. So it used to be a layer of calcite, then tuff, and that has been replaced with smooth basalt. And you can make this smooth basalt by smelting regular basalt inside of a furnace. And on the topic of the geode, there was actually a bug fix to stop these from generating inside of large air caves. So you could walk into a big open cave like this, find one floating in the middle, and that will no longer be the case. You'll have to probably dig to find them. I've been flying around and it feels like they always sort of generate on the edge, close to something. As you can see, this one right here is sort of connected to a cave. You have to look out for those calcite blocks or the smooth basalt, which blends in extremely well. This one over here, again, look, very close to the edge of a cave. And on the topic of terrain generation, we have a fantastic tweet from Henrik here with a really large image revealing the insights to how cave generation is created through noise. And if we have a closer look at the image, you can see it giving us some examples of how it generates different types of noise, and then that translates into the layout of caves inside the Minecraft world, as well as cave networks. You can see how those are joined together. There are some more examples of the different types of noise, and then noise pillars to show you how the pillars inside of the caves are generated as well. And if you want to have a closer look at that, there'll be a link to the tweet in the description box down below. And Henrik has shared another insight here, as some of the ores are less likely to show up when they're exposed to air. And because water blocks are not air blocks, you'll have an incentive to take a plunge and explore some of the waterlogged caverns. And a final bit of insight for now, King B Dogs has clarified that the deep dark will be generating below Y0, but other biomes like the lush caves and the dripstone caves will be able to generate down there as well. Now we are about to get to some of the really cool changes in this snapshot, but first of all, YouTube tells me that most of you watching are still not subscribed. Look, if you've seen more than a couple of these snapshot videos, then why not subscribe? Make sure that you never miss out on them. But anyways, there's a reason we're now down here without night vision in a dark cave, and that's because they look awesome, but also new textures. You might notice that this down here, formerly known as Grimstone, is now called Deepslate, and the top texture of this block is different. When you look at the side of it, it's like it used to be before, but the top is different, and we now have a new block called Cobbled Deepslate, and this is where you actually get the Deepslate texture on all sides of the block. So the way this works is if you break the Deepslate with a regular pick, you get Cobbled Deepslate, and if you break it with Silk Touch on your pick, you'll be able to keep the normal Deepslate with the different texture on top. And it's with this cobbled deep slate that you can now craft all of the different types of deep slate blocks. One thing I'll point out is that there's still no recipe for the deep slate tiles. And so as you've seen in this video already, there are deep slate ores. There's also lots of texture changes and tweaks. I believe iron ore was different last time. The gold ore actually used to be the same as the nether gold ore. I think it'd be a really good idea to keep all three of those consistent. And over here we had lapis getting changed, which was one of the unique ones that remained the same last time. So basically everything here except the classic diamond one is getting an update. And just in case you wanted a side-by-side comparison of how they used to look, here it is from the blog post. So you might have spotted it in that image, but there were also changes to the other deep slate textures, the chiseled one over here noticeably being not as dark, and also in the patch notes apparently blackstone is still being tweaked. If anything, I just think it all looks a little bit smoother. And getting back to these new ores, apparently they are tougher to mine, so if we just go ahead and mine them one by one, yeah, a little bit, not terribly noticeable. And so far they're abiding to the same rules where the same type of block drops each time. And I also wanted to check that you can silk touch these, and the answer is yes, so these will be collectible blocks. Now when you are exploring your caves and looking for ores, one thing you'll notice is that the regular stone ore, it actually generates alongside the tough block. If we look at the F3 screen on the right hand side, you can see that there is a list over here for stone ore replaceables. And when we look at the deep slate, you can see it has deep slate ore replaceables. In fact, there have been lots of these lists added. We got one for diamond ores, lapis ores, and redstone. This one is lit. And just having a quick look inside of the snapshot files here, there's nothing extra really to glean from this, although a reminder that ores can generate inside of stone, granite, diorite, andesite, and tuff. I should also mention these blocks have been given their own sounds. So they have unique footsteps, and unique and very crunchy block placing sounds. And here's something I missed from the last snapshot. A moment ago you might have noticed that lush plants replaceable was a part of the deep slate. Well, this means that with a moss block you can actually replace this stuff with moss and a little bit of bone meal. Next up, changes to ore distribution, and here you can see this snapshot and last snapshot, and if you need a detailed explanation of what's going on here, I recommend you check out the last video I made. But for now, let's take a look at the changes in this one. The big and obvious things is that these lines are now at angles as opposed to being blocky. I'm guessing they've come up with some new code to generate it so that it's smoother in distribution. But anyway, you'll notice that our emerald ore will only generate inside of mountain biomes. And down here at the bottom of the world, there are smaller blobs of iron to be found inside of this range. This is entirely new, so 0 to the bottom you can find some iron. And for diamonds and gold, we see reduced air exposure, whereas lapis, for example, is no air exposure. And so essentially this works like ancient debris in the nether, where you have to break blocks in order to find the stuff because it generates behind other blocks, and that's how lapis works. Now apparently this will happen to some of the diamond ore and some of the gold ore. However, it doesn't really clarify what exactly they mean by some. And I'm guessing if you watch some of the other snapshot reviewers out there who have access to the code, they'll probably be able to tell us exactly what's going on. But yeah, sometimes the diamond ore is maybe behind blocks and sometimes it's not. And on the note of ore generation, apparently iron ore isn't generating properly in this snapshot, so tomorrow there will be a B snapshot, which may contain more than just this Thix, who knows. And there are more changes in this snapshot. As you can see, we got particle effects, and those are created by the spore blossom. These now actually spread out a little bit further around than they originally did. And if we just place one on its own and give it a moment, you can see that it actually spreads out about 3 or 4, maybe 5 blocks in each direction. This is actually distributing a lot of particle effects. I think I preferred it when it was in a smaller area. This actually seems to be a really large area. And it's just occurred to me that this stuff is probably not going to pick up very well on a YouTube video, right? So let's spam a whole bunch of them, and yeah, you can see lots of particle effects. And I just want to say, I think we need more blocks that allow the players to control particle effects, because you could put this inside of your builds and, you know, use it to help add atmosphere and decoration. But moving on from that, you can see here we have a mine shaft generating in a big open cave. This is a change from the last snapshot where they weren't able to do this. Also, a really great example of how sometimes chains generate to attach it to the ceiling, or the logs attach it to the ground. Also, inside of the creative menu, slime blocks and honey blocks have finally been moved into the redstone tab. And last of all, I'd like to comment on something I discovered when doing a little bit of testing in between the snapshot videos that I make. Inside of the mountain biome, among the Deepslate down here at the bottom of the world, these blocks right here are infested stone, so that stuff is still generating down here. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but when mining you'll find little pockets of it, and it will be very obvious what it is because it will be stone texture all the way down in the bottom of the world. And just looking at some of the shapes of the ores and their distribution here, it looks as if the ore mine shapes are still pretty much the same at this point, and they could be subject to change. And that is about everything this snapshot, so if you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like and share it with your Minecraft buddies, because 1.17 is shaping up to be pretty awesome, right? What do you think of these ore textures? Leave a comment down below. I personally think these new ones are fantastic, and I'm loving the direction of this update. That's it from me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.